thank you very much for attending this event, which is attached to our British Computer Society Information Security Specialist Group, AGM, we have just completed. So I'd like to introduce our speaker this evening. His name is Michael Attenburger, and he's come all the way from Zurich just to speak to you this evening. So he works as the head of sales engineering at Open Systems. Open Systems are a Swiss-based company, hence the Zurich component, and they've been around since the 1990s. They specialize in providing managed services around fast, secure connectivity, encompassing SD-WAN, you'll hear about this more, and secure access service edge with over 10,000 deployments globally. Michael has worked for Open Systems for over 12.5 years. He's originally from Munich in Germany, and he's now based full-time in Switzerland with his family. As well as being head of sales engineering, Michael spends 20% of his time working in Open Systems mission control as an engineering monitoring manager and troubleshooting network and security operations for clients, which is a 24/7 capability. Michael, like many of us who will be on the call, is a CISP, and after the talk, we will open it up for questions, but I'd like you all to put your hands together to welcome Michael to the presentation.
And thanks to BCS for having me. So yeah, as already pointed out, I'll talk about SASE today. And yeah, for sure we will have time at the end for questions, but if there's anything not clear or you have anything, just speak up and ask your questions, and I'll try to address it as I can. Okay, let's jump right into it. Already introduced, so skip that slide. Quick overview, what I try to cover. First, quick introduction to SASE itself and what it is, and why SASE. I try to dive into the details, what's included, the different components of SASE, and then the benefits, why you may want to deploy SASE, why companies want to follow the SASE approach. And another brief chapter about, yeah, how does SD-WAN and in the future of SD-WAN play along there. And if we have time, a very quick glimpse into how Open Systems understands SASE and offers SASE, managed SASE actually, and Q&A at the end, but as I said, speak up anytime. Okay. So historically, if you look at yeah, the history kind of enterprise networks, not so long ago, there was still MPLS, quite a thing. It still is at some companies. The more modern solution then was IPVPN based, and not so long after SD-WAN came along. And yeah, now we today are here to talk about SASE, which by itself may not be a totally new technology, but it's, yeah, a new term, and actually, yeah, a combination of existing technologies into this new term, SASE, termed by Gartner. And yeah, I'll try to explain and show you what it really is, what it is all about. So before SD-WAN, we had like traditional WANs, as I just pointed out. Those were like network centric, no application recognition or anything, MPLS, or later than IPVPN based. And yeah, there was no central orchestration, there was no application awareness, rather on the expensive side for dedicated connectivity. But on the other hand, you did have SLAs maybe. So on MPLS lines, that was what companies liked about them. And many companies have a hard time letting go, knowing MPLS, oh, I got SLAs there. So how can I migrate everything to internet-based SD-WAN or then SASE if they don't have SLAs anymore? But I'll come to that. And of course, then SD-WAN changed that to some extent, providing application-centric enterprise networks, providing application awareness. I have to admit somebody into the room. I'm sorry, unless somebody else can do it. You know, yeah. I admitted one person.
Oh, you admitted.
Oh,
that's fine. Yeah, that's fine.
So yeah, SD-WAN then had a local internet breakout. So compared to centric networks with just maybe 3 internet breakouts globally, suddenly you had like a local internet breakout at every location, which had additional benefits, of course. The whole orchestration, so automated deployments, similar or same policies globally, that's something which came along then with SD-WAN. So, and of course you had automated failover, could use MPLS links, internet links, all of this, something you can all leverage with SD-WAN, which you before couldn't. So that is just to setting the stage, because SD-WAN didn't disappear. SD-WAN is still part of SASE actually. So SD-WAN, of course, has some challenges. Of course, leveraging the internet, you never know what will be your performance. At least you could say that. There's ways to address this, but that's at least some one challenge you would need to think of. Remote users by SD-WAN alone aren't covered. So how do you connect them with ZTNA, remote access? You have to consider that. SD-WAN itself does not address security. Of course, encryption of the WAN traffic, that's covered, but if you have a local internet breakout, how do you secure this? Okay? You need other means to protect actually the internet traffic, to protect your users when accessing internet sites. So NG firewall or secure web gateway, something like that. And cloud readiness, of course, SD-WAN by itself kind of is cloud ready. You can integrate and connect with many vendors. You can connect to Azure, AWS, your private cloud instances. But it's kind of limited. You take a lift and shift approach. Instead of a physical appliance, you may have a virtual appliance in the cloud, which is very handy. You can have the same policies, but still a little bit limited and not cloud native. Okay. Yeah, so those are SD-WAN challenges, some of which are then addressed by SASE. So if we talk about SASE, okay, there's a lot of words which come up in the context of SASE. So yeah, but it's probably not sure if everybody is clear what SASE actually means. Okay, so in short, let's say SD-WAN, SASE is the combination of SD-WAN and SSE. So SSE, another abbreviation, new term also coined by Gartner, security service edge. The combination of the two and a little bit more, that's then you get SASE. So what does that mean specifically? We have the WAN service edge on the one side. WAN service edge meaning locations which are connected and securely connected. So SD-WAN is taking care of this. And WAN service edge includes connectivity. So if you have internet lines or any kind of underlay connectivity, that's included on the WAN service edge. On the other side, security service edge, then you talk about connecting and protecting users working from anywhere. So there's different technologies involved listed here, ZTNA, secure web gateway, CASB, firewall. I'll come to the components later on. So SASE is about connecting and protecting your users anywhere and also connecting and protecting your locations. And of course, enabling access to the applications which could be based anywhere, be it internet, in your private cloud, SaaS applications, anywhere. So another way of putting it is here. You see global distributed components of the SASE, of a SASE environment, connected with the WAN service edge and security service edge on the other hand. And everything is, of course, centrally managed and orchestrated and globally enforced policies for internet access, for SD-WAN, for security policies in general. Okay. So then why SASE after all? Big question. Of course, there's many trends ongoing and those are not really new. You have everything moving to the cloud, applications, workloads, the data can be anywhere. Applications can be in the cloud, can be on-prem, can be directly hosted at a company enterprise location. So and your users, your partners, your suppliers, they need to access those locations. So your network needs to provide the required flexibility to to make this happen, to securely protect and give access to those applications for your users. So this is not just me making this up, but obviously also companies like Gartner, see this trend. And here just a quote that more and more companies, of course, move towards this. Well, to integrate SASE or SSE solutions because of this macro trends I just mentioned. And it's also, of course, about consolidating your provider landscape. If you have different point products, it's hard to manage. So SASE provides one solution, or can provide one solution for all the different use cases to connect your users and to give access to your applications. And this is another report, also from Gartner, that if you have the choice between choosing a single vendor just for the SSE component, single vendor strategy, or different point solutions for the different components of security service edge, then it has many advantages to select a vendor who can do more than just one point solution and integrates everything to give you one interface to the vendor, one portal, or one console for managing your solution. So overall, what are the business problems we hear about at Open Systems and in the market? I mentioned some of it already. Data is everywhere, in the cloud, in the data center, at locations, and users need to access that. Users are everywhere, okay, not just since Corona, but more since then. You have users at home, traveling, in the office or not, and you always want the same level of protection for your users. And the traditional perimeter that is dissolved already a long time ago, I don't know, 20 years ago maybe, companies all had a firewall protecting like a moat of the castle, and everybody who was in was a friend, and everybody who wasn't in was the enemy. But that has dissolved because users are anywhere. There's no clear moat anymore. And of course, there's many security appliances which were traditionally used, like firewalls, secure web gateway, and so on, but all is different point solutions, and that doesn't work anymore for many customers, many enterprises, because they need to manage all this. And as everything gets more complex, they lack also the required staff to manage all the solutions. They look for other ways of maintaining this. So what are the components of SASE? I already mentioned it's about connecting and securing users and applications. And now you see a lot of components on the slide. I'll elaborate on a few of them in the following slides. But it's really the combination of the two of them, two factors, connecting everything in the enterprise world and securing it. So if we talk about SD-WAN, the SD-WAN core components are on the slide. It's about detecting, recognizing applications, what we call application visibility. It can be a layer 7 engine detecting applications, but at the same time, you want to recognize legacy applications, which may only be used at your enterprise. So then you can define those applications in your SD-WAN solution, in your SD-WAN orchestrator. And you will then be able to prioritize your applications. So what you, in the MPLS world, knew as quality of service, here it is called bandwidth control, to give priorities to your business applications, to your real-time applications, and define such a pyramid as you can see on the slide here. And then after all, path selection is, I already mentioned, it's about SD-WAN is about using more than one link with automated failover. So this is pictured here. It would be 2 ISP links, ISP MPLS combined, or even 3 links or more. It's all possible then with SD-WAN. And SD-WAN is still, as I pointed out, a component of SASE. Firewall, nothing spectacular here. Firewall as a service, as most SASE or SSE vendors call it. It can be a local firewall at the site, or it can be a cloud-based firewall, depending on the scenario, depending on the requirements. The important part is SASE is a cloud orchestrated service, but usually vendors offer both an on-prem firewall for like latency relevant applications, or a cloud-based firewall because it's easier to deploy and easier to manage. There's no hardware then involved. Then we have, of course, Egineering for securely giving your users application access. So the users can be anywhere, any device, any location. Can have continuous verification of the access to your applications, even in Azure, AWS, any cloud provider, or on-prem in your data center at any of your WAN locations, wherever those locations are. And you can even integrate your SaaS applications into the Egineering solution. Secure Web Gateway, also probably no big surprise here. All integrated into the same platform. You have the usual components like authentication, URL filter, malware scanning. So again, to protect your users when accessing the internet. And lastly, your CASB, Cloud Access Security Broker, is to gain more visibility into the internet access of your users to the SaaS application access of your users. So the Secure Web Gateway already protects you and your users when accessing the internet, but CASB gives you more visibility into what kind of websites are visited, are they compliant, how many file sharing applications are used in your organization. Maybe you are not aware that there are dozens of risky file sharing applications in use, which you would actually want to block. And this application discovery and risk assessment phase 2 on the slide, that's the initial part or the initial component of the CASB service to gain an understanding what applications, what SaaS applications are really used in your organizations, and then you can determine, okay, what should be blocked. And CASB also allows you to say, I want to allow this site, but my users shouldn't be able to upload on that site because it's not compliant with our security or with your security policy. So those CASB policies are then enforced on the Secure Web Gateway, and they are then valid both for on-prem users and for remote users. So putting it all together, SASE, to give you again an overview of the SASE part, SASE service, similar graphic as you've seen before. I added the components, the different components. Some vendors then, of course, on the SD-WAN part, you could add application optimization, another service which may be included. If it's a managed SASE service, you have a NOC included in the service, which takes care of all the requests, problems, incidents of your service desk, and it generally manages the service for you. So there's of course, SASE can be subscribed to as a managed service or bought as a product or self-managed. Both is possible. So what are the benefits of SASE then? First, as I mentioned, there are different options for SASE. You can, of course, use separate vendors for the SSE part and for the SD-WAN part, and then maybe even a different vendor for underlay, or you have a different, a wide range of providers for your underlay. Of course, use a single vendor who offers everything. Then you have one single point of contact and one single point of contract. It's easier to manage, maybe more convenient. And as I mentioned, you can use it as a product or a managed service. And what are use cases? That leads me then to the benefits. What are use cases for SASE? Of course, the network can be simplified and security can be enhanced. Traditional VPN you can get rid of. All the security services are consolidated into one platform. So you don't have, as I mentioned before, the many different point products with different web interfaces. You have one vendor with one web interface in the ideal scenario. And of course, if you want to get rid of MPLS, if you want to integrate users who work remotely easier and better, then yeah, you can also do all of this with SASE. And then, yeah, so coming to the really benefits and advantages, of course, reduced complexity, one solution, yeah, overall better control, better security, and yeah, for many customers, zero trust, of course, is now a very big topic on their roadmap. So SASE enables them to continue that journey, to start that journey. So companies always have to decide what approach is right for you, for the customer. Do they have enough staff to maintain and manage the SASE solution and the services included themselves? Are they fine with managing different vendors, or do they want one vendor to provide all the services integrated? They still need a full SASE portfolio, including a solution for on-prem services, or are they very cloud native and can really pull all the services or subscribe to all the services just out of the cloud? They don't need any appliances anymore. And of course, there's benefits if you just choose one vendor with integrated solution and don't have different vendors. I mentioned already some of them. So yeah, more security, same policy for on-prem users and remote users. You don't need as much staff to maintain the solution or to manage the solution and the tickets which originate from your users regarding the service. And of course, yeah, you don't have any gap between the SSE part and the SD-WAN part, everything integrated in one solution. So easier for your enterprise after all. So Open Systems is a managed SASE provider, so that, yeah, enables you to, yeah, out-task managing all the services. So you don't have to, yeah, have compromise between the points raised here. Like, do you want usability or security? It's fully managed. So yeah, you get basically both. And the same for accessibility and functionality. So all the services included. There's various vendors who offer managed SASE solutions. But it's really, yeah, it depends on the scenario, on the staffing, what is best for an organization. So SASE includes SD-WAN. I think that I've pointed out already. So what does it mean? Because SD-WAN, SASE is like the next generation, you could say, or well, it's a new technology, but it doesn't mean SD-WAN is going away. So there's a new approach to SD-WAN itself, actually. So companies have integrated a dedicated backbone into the SD-WAN. Okay. So I mentioned before that SD-WAN has the challenge that, yeah, application performance on the internet is not always predictable. You have bandwidth control or application-based QoS to take care of this, but still you don't get SLAs on the internet. Okay. To overcome this, there's the SD-WAN backbone, meaning the customer just has to bring their ISP line, the last mile basically, to connect here, like in this graphic, remote users or offices, headquarters, data centers, and then connect to the closest POP on that backbone. All the corporate traffic can traverse through the customer backbone to the provider backbone and have the SLAs with that. And in detail, you see this here, a local internet line. It doesn't need to have perfect peering to the other continent. The SD-WAN backbone is leveraged there. Okay, the SD-WAN backbone is, of course, redundant and just need a local internet line who connects to the appliance, or the user connects to the closest POP, and then the routing to the other side, to the data center, to the cloud, is handled automatically via the backbone. The next slide. Here you see how, the different scenarios. Traditionally, you had internet without a backbone. Then you have, the non-predictable performance, or not so well predictable. The backbone, you have guaranteed performance, you have SLAs on the backbone. Some providers go so far to even provide end-to-end SLAs for this. They provide the first and last mile ISP lines plus the backbone if the customer really needs all of this. And has the advantage compared to MPLS, should be more cost effective. Bandwidth, it's not as limited as with MPLS, and it's more flexible because any location can be connected regardless what kind of ISP link they have. Just needs to connect to the closest POP, can be connecting redundant with 1, 2, or 3 ISP lines, and that's it. Yeah, question?
What's the role of data center? Where are data centers in this? And you mentioned something about not needing perfect peering. Does that mean that's another way of connecting between corporates without going through an internet exchange?
Hang on. So the first question, where are the data centers? A data center would be a location as well. And that is also connected, can be connected to one backbone. And then any site, let's say the data center is here in London, but the user or the other site, corporate office, is in New York. Then the office in New York just needs an internet line, can connect to the SD-WAN POP in New York, and the traffic from New York to London is routed via the backbone. The ISP in New York has perfect peering with the ISP in London. Doesn't matter at all. Okay, because it just needs the first mile here on the left-hand side. The previous slide, you see the first mile. That would be the traffic from the office in New York to the POP in, I don't know, New York or Virginia, where the next POP would be of the SD-WAN backbone. And then routing over to UK via the backbone. So the peering between last mile provider and first mile provider is not so relevant, not relevant at all to use the SD-WAN backbone. Okay. And then your second question, can you help me out?
I think you might have answered it in part. If you the peering, one way I understand is through, let's say, internet exchanges with databases, but maybe that's no longer another option is through the SD-WAN backbone.
Exactly. Yes.
So this is a new development.
Yes, it's a new option. It's not included in all SD-WAN solutions, but it's an option. Not all SASE vendors offer it already, but more and more do, including those SLAs which I mentioned.
We have a raised hand, which I did ask people to do at the end, but now you've started the trend.
Yeah, sure.
Tim Williams has a question for you, which I assume is to do with this particular function. Tim, would you
Well,
like to answer?
actually, my question is a little bit different, and I suppose I've got two slight variations on the same underlying question. So my question really is about addressing, because anyone who works in a complex network environment has to deal with both addresses that are globally unique, public addresses, and addresses that may be duplicated. For example, all of the Class A, Class B, Class C private addresses can be exist in lots of places around the world. So I'd just be really interested to understand how you handle the introduction of addressing into an existing complex network environment. I suppose that's the general question. And then I suppose I've got a related question is about simulation. So normally when you are trying to bring in network services, it's quite difficult to simulate changes so that you make sure that you're going to make the right configuration changes before you actually make them. And so normally you need to have a simulation environment in which is physically different but uses the same logical addressing that you're planning to do. And I'd be interested to understand how you approach simulation requirements. So it's kind of two questions, but all around the idea of when addresses are unique and when addresses are not unique.
Okay, so regarding the addresses, usually the customer already has an IP concept one way or the other. If the customer, the SASE solution doesn't introduce any conflict into that space, okay? If the customer has overlapping IP addresses, probably they'll solve this with using different VRFs or using NAT one way or the other. The SASE solution or the SD-WAN backbone doesn't add to that any conflict or complexity at all. Okay?
Okay.
So from that perspective, I don't see any special challenge here, because the routing in the SD-WAN backbone, that's transparent for the customer. So they wouldn't be bothered by whatever IP addresses are used in the SD-WAN backbone. Okay?
Okay.
Now, regarding the simulation, I'm not sure I can answer that question or I fully understand it. Typically, of course, a migration from a traditional network, it could be an SD-WAN network, it could be a legacy MPLS network, it could be a self-managed SASE solution to a managed SASE solution to a new vendor, open systems or another one. But that will always be a gradual process where typically in the initial phase, there's an onboarding phase, there's a pilot or initial deployment phase where things are verified and tested. Maybe the first sites to be migrated are, of course, aren't the headquarters or largest production sites. So there, certain level of testing can be done. Now, simulation, I don't have an answer to that. Typically,
I mean, I'll give you I suppose some specifics in a lot of organizations, and we talked about this earlier, in the financial services sector, you have things like the operational resilience tests where you need to be able to prove that you have continuity arrangements that you can fail over, and effectively you have to simulate almost a whole enterprise using the same logical addressing scheme, but in a physically segregated environment. This is quite a common requirement, and there are obviously vendors that specialize in network simulation, things like Skybox, which would allow you to model an enterprise network in a simulated environment so that you can be assured that all of your planned configuration changes will work correctly. So that type of scenario that I was thinking of.
Okay. Yep, probably that's something not in scope typically of a SASE solution. I mean, always the question, how well can you simulate an enterprise network? There may be 500 locations and thousands of users connected. So yes, you could simulate, but to some extent only. So other than that, I don't have a good answer for you.
Okay, thank you.
Does SOAR come into that, secure orchestration and automated response? Anywhere in this?
To a little bit, maybe, but that I see more in if we talk about a managed detection and response service, more going deeper into the security part. Of course, there's a lot of automatism included here, but not what you typically call SOAR. Okay, like, of course, redundancy is fully automated, configuration deployments, updates, that's all automated, but it's not SOAR.
Which is further.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, to be conscious of the time, I think I explained that slide already. Just quickly, the backbone basically mixes the benefits of internet and MPLS. MPLS with their SLAs and reliability, while still offering the flexibility of internet lines, because you need cloud access. MPLS was very limited, or there were central internet breakouts only, no access to your SaaS and cloud applications from the sites, and the WAN backbone can provide all that while providing reliability and even SLAs. So what would be needed to turn off SD-WAN? Well, no more physical locations really anymore. All the users just working from anywhere, maybe with a SIM card in their notebook, and that's basically it. There are some companies who already do that, but typically not the larger enterprises. So yeah, it's if as long as you have legacy applications, typically not feasible to already get rid of SD-WAN. Some companies, yes, but a big part of enterprises we see they are not there yet. And what could stop one from going towards disabling all legacy applications and getting there so you wouldn't need any SD-WAN anymore? It could be compliance reasons, that application needs to be hosted somewhere. Legacy applications which can't be migrated to a cloud or towards a application which wouldn't need a WAN anymore. If you have production sites, you need static VPN connections between locations. You have very high performance requirements. You need traffic to stay local, even if it goes through a firewall. Then you can't send all that traffic to the cloud. So SD-WAN is still there to stay for a while, at least in part. Most companies will always use a hybrid approach. Security Service Edge, so ZTNA, CASB, Secure Web Gateway, to connect users, more and more users who work from just anywhere, while at the same time connecting production facilities, large locations with an SD-WAN. That can be backbone based or not. A quick overview of the Open Systems Managed SASE approach. I'll keep it quick. Then we hopefully have time for questions. So Open Systems offers a managed SASE solution which covers everything from onboarding, then the operational excellence. Alan mentioned it. I work in mission control. On the slide in the middle here, you see our NOC in Zurich. So it's a level 3, third level engineer, basically only. Support center, NOC, we call it mission control. And of course, the consulting, customer success, who consults the customer continuously throughout the relationship is also included. So that's really critical, because just like with SD-WAN, with SASE, with any enterprise, you don't come to a green field and can start from scratch. Okay. So you always have to migrate the WAN very carefully, migrate users, migrate locations. And so the onboarding and migration phase is very critical. And at the same time, customers typically continue on their IT transformation journey, migrating more services towards the cloud. So the strategic consulting also very critical. So very quickly, comprehensive SASE solution. The Open Systems approach is really all the services under one roof, one web interface, one unified web interface, and easy to use. It's one web interface which you can do certain things yourself, but it's still a managed service. You can always call mission control, raise tickets, even emergency tickets, say you need assistance right now. And here, again, everything put together in one slide. Again, on the left-hand side, WAN Service Edge, on the right-hand side, Security Service Edge. Even services like LAN firewall, OT firewall can be included, which you may still want or need to keep on-prem. At the bottom, you see the different services which are included, meaning the basis for the services. So one web interface, all the architecture, the planning and design, unlimited tickets and requests, that's all included in the Open System services. So there's no. And last but not least, covered some of this already. Typically, you have different ways of choosing your solutions, your security and networking capabilities, how you choose your vendors. There's different point solutions on the very left. self-managed maybe, that's basically table stake. Everybody needs most of them, but then you want that integrated into one portal, one vendor. That's then basically the next improvement towards it. You still operate it yourself. The next phase would be, okay, you get it managed 24/7 with third level engineers, dedicated account team and everything. So already a better solution if you are in the need of a managed service. And then last phase would be a true partnership where we can grow together and no hidden costs. So really one partnership-based service, the open systems. One last slide with some numbers for open systems, but I don't read it out for you. You can look yourself. Just one number, we are very proud of the Net Promoter Score, 66. Quite high for a managed service provider. We do it really random based on our customers. We stay quite long with open systems, and we achieve this with these third level support and mission control. That's a big part of it. Of course, customer success and everybody working with the customer, but mission control is a key part. So that was it. But of course, I'm open for more questions from your side.
So one of the things that I thought about SASE and Citrix Bleed, the CV 2023-4966, which impacts NetScalers, and a lot of focus has been on about VPN. But one of the attack vectors out there, which I've seen on some companies who are slow to patch, is that if you're doing multi-factor authentication, then Citrix Bleed you can utilize to access those environments and use a security tool, multi-factor authentication against those companies, and then put ransomware into those environments and cause absolute havoc. And there's I'm not going to name them at this moment in time, but there's a large IT security provider in the UK who supplies to many solicitors, and they are still trying to get their services up and running after 3 weeks. Now, with SASE, I see that there's more drive to have a hybrid environment where there's a reduction in the impact of having these NetScalers and load balancing devices which are managing multi-factor authentication credentials. How do you see SASE being able to influence or improve the capability of managing that?
It's a very good question. So while I'm not a NetScaler expert, the security part in the SASE for the SASE service is a key component, and it's fully integrated into the customers or into the enterprises IDP. So if you use, for example, Microsoft Entra ID, obviously many customers do that. The authentication for the users would be coupled to this. So it doesn't use its own authentication system. I'm not sure how that is handled with NetScaler, but I would assume, maybe it's a proprietary solution or something not relevant for the rest of the enterprise. So my best guess is that you could avoid a lot of that risk, which the companies using NetScaler have there. NetScaler can be used, what I read, for where the bleed comes in deployment scenarios like RDP proxy, for example, or a VPN. And some of those, if not all, can be covered by a ZTNA solution. So there you have the continuous validation and full integration into the enterprise's IDP. So at least you could mitigate that to some extent.
Right, thanks very much.
Tim has a question again.
Sure.
Hello, different topic this time. I've through working with different cloud service providers, I've become aware, obviously, that there are major differences in the scope of the network services that are available from cloud service providers. If you go to Azure, because of the Microsoft network, they will kind of encourage you to to buy express routes, and that's kind of bundled into the cloud offering. If you go to AWS or GCP or SoftLayer or whatever, then you're going to be provisioning your own peering and your own networks into their clouds. I wonder, is your company potentially looking at doing marketplace offerings within any of the cloud service providers, so that people who wanted to have networks provisioned from their existing cloud tenants could buy your managed services through their existing cloud relationships? Have you got any sort of indirect models, or are you thinking of everything being direct?
So it's a very good point. So far we do the direct selling, direct approach. We are looking in the indirect approach as well. So regarding the selling in the, I think you mentioned Azure Marketplace, because it's not a point solution which you just buy and then deploy yourself and you're all good. It's not currently feasible probably to go down that route. You mentioned express route. Of course, that's like you need a dedicated pipe from your headquarter or your data center to Azure. That could be the way to go. SD-WAN already provides more flexibility because you can have a VPN connection from every single site to Azure, for example, which has benefits because it's a local connection, but maybe the pipe is not as big as with your express route. So yeah, it depends on the use case. What we see actually as the next step, and OpenSystems is currently working at it, instead of deploying virtual appliances, the POPs, the OpenSystems POPs can be in AWS, in Azure, or anywhere else. And then it will be possible to actually establish a direct peering between the customers, for example, Azure tenant, and the OpenSystems POP. So no need for virtual appliances anymore. So you have a direct connection, and you have more bandwidth and better connectivity there as well.
Yeah, I know. I was thinking again from an enterprise perspective. If you're trying to plan resilience arrangements, and you effectively want to be able to do multi-cloud scenarios where you'd want to be able to effectively connect up enterprise applications in one cloud service provider with another cloud service provider without in a convenient and reliable way. So yeah, it would seem to me that your company potentially has a play there in enabling enterprise integrations that are currently quite difficult to do.
Yes, I would say it's already, I think I pointed it out, already possible currently, like with many vendors by deploying virtual appliances, but that's not the cloud native way to go. So with the direct peering via the cloud tenants from the customer to the OpenSystems POP, that will be easier and more common. Yeah, absolutely.
So in a way, we should, even if it's not currently happening, we should start expecting to see marketplace offerings appearing in cloud service providers with OpenSystems point of presence as an option that people could in future select.
I can't promise anything about marketplace offerings, because it always comes to a certain extent as a bundle. Okay, you typically the OpenSystems services, SD-WAN or SASE, are for like the enterprise network, not just for one location or one peering. So if you migrate to the OpenSystems SD-WAN with Backbone, then you can leverage that. And then the marketplace offering wouldn't be a typical scenario, I would say.
Okay, thank you.
Probably, at least short midterm, not something which we would get out of the market.
Okay, thank you.
Well, I don't think we have any more questions unless there's any final questions. We're just about bang on time because it's 5 to 7, and we said we'd wrap up by 7 o'clock. So any final questions either in the room or online? Nothing coming through on chat. Michael, thank you very much indeed. That was great.